Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Stories Worth Telling. Today we have Alex Yoder from Dorman Real Estate Properties here with us today. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it's kind of funny, man, because I've known you for man, high school, right? I think we used to play tag at at the park back in the day when you used to cheat just because you were so long and you could get to places we couldn't. Um, so,
Yes.
but man, it's only I think within the past couple of years, that gotten a chance to really kind of catch up and see what you're doing and uh, made a big name for yourself here in Colorado Springs, which is awesome. Really glad to see that and to know, people that are doing really great things. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dorman? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved.
Yeah. So I've been managing properties for about 15 years now.
Wow.
Started at the age of 21 when I was young and dumb. I'm a little less young and dumb now, but um, yeah. So our company manages a little over 700 total doors. Most of those are single family properties, and the majority of those are in El Paso County. And we've been in business for about 10 years. For anybody who remembers the name McGinnis Real Estate, my now partner, Todd Dorman, bought their property management division back in, 1999, I guess.
Okay.
And then I came on board a couple years later.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think I remember seeing some of those signs around back in the day. It's funny because you don't some of those things you don't notice because you're not adult and you're not looking for all those things yet. But
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
yeah.
Cool. So, and it's a long time. And I know that you do a lot. Gosh, I mean, when I was looking at the biography of all the different things that you've done with real estate, um, and of course, being part of the Facebook group that you have and stuff like that. Um, is it at this point in time, like, is it any less stressful being in property management now than when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, there's some new stresses, not only as our kind of our culture changes and shifts over time, but also just kind of the COVID challenges.
Mm,
But for me specifically, I would say property management is a lot easier than it was 10 years ago.
okay.
One of the things about property management is that it's, for many years, was kind of considered the redheaded stepchild of real estate. Sales agents, even to this day, try to avoid getting sucked into managing properties because it's challenging. You're kind of the target of everyone's affection.
Mm.
And I don't mean that in a good way, And so, when I first started, and I think most of the people that I know with peers in the industry, when they first started, they learned everything the hard way. And it's one of those unfortunate realities is that in property management, there are so many little cracks that you have to fill with either experience or systems.
Mm.
And when you first get started, usually those cracks get filled because you suffered a lot in something that you wish you had already known. And then you go through it, and then you're like, well, I'm going to go update my lease now because I'm never going to want to deal with that again. And at this point, after doing it for 15 years, I have many fewer of those moments. They still happen, but they used to be a regular occurrence. And so I think, that's why they say it kind of takes a unique personality to deal with and stick around.
Sure. Yeah, I can only imagine kind of some of the stuff that you have to go through. And for those that are tuning in live, thank you guys for tuning in. If you wouldn't mind just typing in #live so that way we know who's here present and watching it now. And then later, if you're catching this on the replay, you can always do a comment and then if you do a #replay, that way we just kind of know. Sometimes we don't get to see the comments real time, so it's good to know kind of who is participating. We're trying to work and improving on that. But thank you guys for tuning in. Alex, for people who maybe don't understand kind of maybe the services and maybe the role for a property manager, kind of walk us through that and then kind of tell us, what Dorman does. What are the various services that you guys offer?
Yeah, so a property manager, the model of what it is that we actually do, it somewhat changes based on company. But for the most part, there are standard services that are pretty much offered across the board. So we are marketing the property, And that includes aggressive listing and syndication to, every website you could think of.
Mm-hmm.
It includes doing showings. It includes taking applications, and screening people is really one of the most biggest values in hiring a company is a good screening of tenants. So we'll screen them, we'll place them in a lease, and the lease in itself is very much of value. It's a living document. We update it, as I said earlier, we update it when we experience pain. Usually that's every 6 months these days, but certainly every year.
Okay.
As legislation and kind of best practices shift over time. So we'll place them in a lease, and then we do condition reporting. So before they move in, we're documenting the condition of the home. And we do the same thing when they vacate to account for their security deposit. So we'll do a move out report. We'll make a list of anything that has to be done to get the home in good condition for the next tenant. We'll reconcile the security deposit and decide what they should be charged, if anything. And as you can imagine, that's a huge value right there. Because regardless of whether you cause the damage or not, you never are going to be happy if your landlord is keeping any of your money.
Sure.
So it's kind of an inherently contentious relationship as it pertains to deposit accounting. We don't want it to be. And when people dispute stuff, we're always open to disputes because we're definitely human and we're capable of making mistakes like anyone else.
Right.
But usually we don't, and we have the documentation to back it up. Now, beyond that, when they're living there, we're mainly doing really three things. One, we're doing all the maintenance coordination. So that's, 2 a.m. calls or 2 p.m. phone calls to deal with either emergencies or ongoing repairs. 2, we're doing all the monthly and yearly bookkeeping. So you're going to get a monthly statement. You're going to get a yearly statement. You're going to get a 1099. I'm sorry, my son is here. Just a second.
That's okay.
No, can you go close the door? Thank you.
Hey, that's the COVID life, right?
It is the COVID life. So we're doing your monthly and yearly bookkeeping. You're getting a 1099. You're getting a year-end statement. All your expenses are neatly captured in categories for easy kind of write-offs. And then we're dealing with all your lease enforcement. So that includes posting the appropriate notices and project managing evictions and all that stuff.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Yeah, just a little bit of what you could do, right?
Yeah.
Now, how many units do you guys manage?
So we manage right around 720 doors.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I have no hair. But we have a really good team. We have a really good team of property managers. We have 4 property managers and then a team of people that support those people, running applications and doing maintenance requests and doing showings and all the million different little things that we do. So yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, do you guys also manage like HOAs as well?
Yeah. So just to give you a bit of background. So Dorman has really kind of 2 entities. The entity that I run, which is our residential management division that manages the 700 plus properties. And then we also have an entity where I'm a silent partner with a gentleman named Rudy Thompson and Todd Dorman. The 3 of us own the association management business. And that is run out of a separate floor on our building. And I'm not involved myself in the day-to-day of that. Rudy is kind of my counterpart for the HOA management. And we have around 60 communities.
Wow. Okay. And that's pretty incredible to know that a huge portion of our community is being taken care of by you guys. And, what would you say that has really kind of been attributing to a lot of your guys' success? Obviously, great partnership, but, maybe versus, some other properties out there or property managers, and then people who are individually maybe looking at, can I do this by myself? Is it better to go with a company? What are some of those things that you might be able to tips and tricks for those people?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I immediately think of is kind of getting back to what I was saying before about sort of systems and cracks. I signed up an owner not too long ago, a couple months ago, and it kind of sticks in my brain because he had a single family home up in Briargate, and I was meeting with him at his house, and he was like, look, and he was literally crying. And he said, look, I have done everything wrong that you can do. And these are things that I've done wrong too. He said, I've done everything wrong that you can do. My relationship with my tenant is not good. Last time I left their house, we were screaming at each other.
Oh, wow.
And I need you to please fix every mistake that I've made, and I need you to take over. And it is because of those kinds of meetings that I love what I do. I can let you sleep well at night and just cut you a check. Not everyone's cut out to be a landlord, and some people that think they are, really shouldn't be landlords. So that's why I love what I do. And this owner, he loves us, because now the relationship is not contentious with the tenant, and all the issues that he couldn't find vendors for and that the tenant was upset about that have all now been cured, and he's not having to think about it and just gets money. So that's huge. But you can only accomplish that level of service in this business by being extremely streamlined with the way you operate.
Right.
Everything that we do is run on checklists and templates. There are so many little things that we have to do along the way, from marketing the property to informing the property owner about what's happening, providing tenants with good information so that you can kind of avoid arguments before they happen. Just so many different things, again, that we've learned through painful experiences.
Sure.
But I think the thing that we uniquely offer as a company is just how streamlined we are. We've got a really good system in place for managing properties. And again, we're not perfect, and we're very open to feedback because we need that to improve. But
of course, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, the templates that you guys are using, the streamlined process obviously is working, but to know that you guys are open to the feedback and things like that, I think is always signs of, willing to be able to improve and get better, So I really appreciate you talking about that. I actually had this question come from somebody yesterday that basically they know of Dorman, they know of you, but they don't necessarily know you directly. But, I think that this was a great question. How are you able to determine, or how do you guys determine what the fair rental value is, or what the fair cost of rent is per month, or, for a lease agreement?
So we as a management company are members of the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors. Even though realtors are generally assumed to be sales agents, there are a lot of realtors who either do commercial real estate or do property management. Mm-hmm. And so we have access to the Pikes Peak Multiple Listing Service, and we generally will pull comps through the listing service. It's a really good database for pulling sales and rental leads. So we are heavily leaning on comps. Now, there are some cases where certain areas of town don't have good comps. I got one the other day in 80911 that was almost a brand new home. Well, guess what? There are like 0 brand new homes in 80911, right?
Right.
So we have to lean on our experience in those cases. Sometimes we grab similar zip codes around the area. Sometimes we go off of just our experience after we've walked through the property. Mm-hmm. So that can be tricky. Now, if you're a self-managing owner and you're looking for that data, I would say be a little careful as you're looking at places like Zillow would be a good example of a place to be careful of.
Yes.
Because you can get free data through Zillow, but frankly, and I think their data is getting better, and I know every agent in the world is going to hate that I even said that because I'm supposed to hate Zillow.
Right.
But I think it's getting better, but it's still not great. So there are better paid services for pulling comps. Okay. And one of the ones that we have even tried out in the past is called rentrange.com.
Okay.
And if you are an investor owner and you are looking for really good data, like cap rates and all these other specifics that you're looking at when you're a serious investor, rentrange.com is a really good national database for that. And I think there's a couple others like them. And you have to pay for those reports. So it's not free. I think you pay a couple bucks, under $10 per report. So.
Okay. Awesome. I went ahead and put that website into the chat there. So if you guys are catching this on the replay, you should be able to access that as well. Great information, man. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And real quick, Patrick, with our company, when people inquire about our management services through our website, mm-hmm. Something we have integrated is when they put in their name and their address and they say, I'm curious about what you guys do, they will automatically get a free rent range report on their property. So we have some pretty cool systems to automatically give that to people, but that's only for folks that want to hire us. So
okay, sure. Sure. No, I think again, that's the thoroughness, right? Kind of talking about kind of all goes back to that service excellence and the things that you guys do to streamline the process there. And again, a lot of trial and error, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. Like, so from your perspective, obviously we know today's market in Colorado Springs and Colorado just in general versus maybe other places. You know, if you were doing an evaluation, maybe coming in as a new family, what are maybe the pros and cons versus renting versus buying in today's market, or and specifically here in our market here in Colorado?
You know, it's tough. I have a lot of time. I have a lot of agents who, in the past, have told me when they're let me back up for a minute. Very rarely do sales agents show rental properties.
Sure.
There are some markets where the commissions for that are reasonable enough to make it worth their while. But in Colorado Springs, most management companies don't pay any referral fee because, frankly, we're spoiled and there's a lot of tenants. But so there's very little incentive for them to do that. So you as a tenant are kind of on your own, frankly, looking for a property, which I know is zero fun, especially when you're competing and you're putting in applications and you're losing your application fee. And we can go into that in more detail. But as you're evaluating what you want to do now, are you asking specifically if you are somebody looking to rent or buy, or somebody who is looking to either rent their property or sell their property?
Well, I guess maybe from your perspective, maybe because we get so many new families coming in, right? And because at some point, I get clients who are coming in and they don't know where to start. So, from your perspective, what are maybe some of the pros versus maybe renting, at this time, maybe versus buying in today's market, knowing that homes are going, sometimes less than 24 hours or 2 hours after being put on the market.
Yeah. So what I was kind of getting at before was, we've had agents tell us, well, if the person I'm representing, when they had representation, had that good of credit, I'd be selling them a home. But believe it or not, our 700 plus tenants are all have pretty decent, at least median credit. So there's a lot of people out there renting properties who could qualify to buy, but who have opted to rent. The reasons for that usually are, I may not be here in a year. I don't want to put down any roots. I don't want to be stuck with, a financial obligation. Or I want to try out the area and figure out what area of town I want to buy. So I want to rent for a year or two before I kind of make that financial commitment.
Sure.
So there's a million different reasons that folks will rent. And of course, a lot of military families that are in town. I would say if you are evaluating the need or the kind of your interest in wanting to rent or buy, I'm a huge fan of trying out the area. We don't really have. This is very subjective, but I don't feel like we have bad areas, compared to other cities in this nation. That's entirely subjective, but you can walk down any street, in my opinion, in Colorado Springs, which is awesome. That's why one of the reasons I love this city. Evaluate your needs, figure out where you feel comfortable, and then kind of go from there. But my caution would be, and I say this because I get a lot of phone calls from folks who purchased a home and they bought at the top of the market, and now they want to rent the home, and the amount that they need to rent the home for does not cover their expenses. I get those calls every single day. And the reason that exists is they're buying at the top of the market, and the sales prices don't always directly influence the rental rate. I say that, the sales market and the sales rates are kind of attached to the rental market and the rental rates by like a rubber band, but not by a stick.
Okay.
So, as the sales market goes up and down, that will have an impact of some kind on the rental market, but it's not necessarily directly quantifiable. So if the sales market is spiking and properties are going like hotcakes, and they're 50,000 over what they were 2 weeks ago, that doesn't mean you're going to get X% more in rent when the property goes to rent.
I see. Okay.
A lot of folks are putting 0% down, especially if you're getting VA financing and you're a military person. And now you have no equity or you have no cash into the home, so your payment is at its max. And very rarely is your rent going to cover your expenses by the time even if you're self-managing it, very, very rarely would it cover your expenses.
Sure. Sure.
So just be careful if you're doing that. Make sure you look at it as, okay, if I move tomorrow, am I financially set up to pay for a second property and to sell it and not lose my butt? Or am I financially set up to at least rent it if I can't sell it? If the answer is no, and if you move tomorrow, you're hosed, man, be real careful before you go buy a property.
Yeah, I think that's really great and sound advice, especially for, investors. I know there's a lot of talk right now of people looking, kind of waiting to see if this market will drop or dip and whatnot, and then kind of looking to maybe swoop in. And, on one hand, I'm super thankful and glad to be around people that are thinking that way, right? On the other hand, it's, you're kind of almost hoping that something does happen, which again, we've been through that a couple of times, and to see kind of what that looks like, on the other end with people that you personally know, friends and family, all that stuff. How are they impacted? All those things. So kind of interesting. Just like anything else, it's just kind of most people are kind of going to be in that reactionary phase, but to know that there are people maybe planning and seeing what'll happen, kind of the next steps. For you guys internally, what does the process look like for maintenance and repairs? Do you guys have your own team or own staff, or do you guys contract that out? What does that stuff look like, and impact, for maybe other small and local business communities and own business owners?
Yeah. So a lot of companies of our size nationally do have internal maintenance companies that they run. I have yet to figure out a way to do that where I wouldn't be gouging my clients.
Sure.
By the time you pay payroll taxes and all this other stuff, it's very difficult to do that. Not impossible, but difficult to do that without having an above average rate versus just paying a guy that works by himself as a handyman, for example.
Sure.
So at this point in time, we use all third-party vendors. We don't do any markups. So usually they'll give us discounts and we just pass those along to our owners. And we'll pay the invoice, on the owner's behalf. And then that kind of wraps into that 1099 that I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So, yeah. And let me speak about the market. You made a comment about the market.
Yeah.
I think that, building in Colorado Springs, really took a hit in 2008 and around 2008 when the market dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And that has created the housing shortage. And Colorado Springs is in huge demand. So it's a huge amount of demand. Even without the building shortage, it's a huge amount of demand.
Right.
And that's why we've kind of sustained through what was kind of an anticipated recession.
Mm-hmm.
Recessions pretty much happen on fairly predictable patterns.
Definitely.
At this point, we've kind of skipped our due recession. And, what will that actually mean, especially as we're dealing with the implications of COVID, is kind of very much TBD. And a lot of the agents that do sales that I speak with that are friends of mine feel like it's likely that the market's going to flatten out, but they don't know if it's going to necessarily drop substantially.
Sure.
So we're keeping an eye on that by the day. But just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a solid point. The hope and idea is that we do have kind of a more of a flatten versus a whole dropping out. It's really interesting time for sure for real estate because the market is so hot and has been for at least the last year and a half.
Yeah.
To the point. And, obviously we would love for that to continue. But like you said, the market is definitely cyclical and we're just kind of waiting to see what happens. So it'll definitely be interesting times for everybody kind of involved in those industries that are tied directly to that. But again, our hopes and fingers is that, we can sustain this as long as we can. And if we do end up having that's just a little bit of a drop off where we're not isn't going to be devastating. So,
yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll bounce back.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so, especially with, the growth that we're seeing in the city as well, and not just in terms of homes and families, but the business, we're getting an equal amount of small and local business owners as well as the corporations, just like we kind of have, but escalating on a much quicker scale now than in years past. So I think that's important for people to realize, is that when you do lay your roots, especially if it is here in Colorado Springs of all places, you kind of have to know kind of what your surroundings are and what that looks like. And for the most part, for any property owners, they just have to know that everything's an investment and it's looking for that longevity and that long-term piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
the short term and the intermediate is definitely important, but what you're looking for is that sustainable growth.
Yep. Absolutely.
How can people, if they want to get involved with Dorman, maybe they're a new business, or maybe they've been working for somebody for a long time and looking to branch off onto their own and stuff like that, what are some of those ways that they might be able to kind of apply to be maybe one of those third-party vendors for you guys?
Yeah. So we accept vendor applications, and we have a vendor form that we have folks fill out. We will only accept those if we have a need. I don't like to waste people's time.
Sure.
So basically, the short answer is, if you call our office, and the phone number is posted there, and ask for Lee, who's our maintenance coordinator, she will tell you if we have a need for your service. And if we do, she'll pass the word around to our team and send you a vendor form to put you on our list.
Nice. Do you guys have any needs currently that we might be able to fulfill?
Man, we seem to have a hard time with good cleaners.
Okay.
And we have a hard time with good turnover handymen. So vendors who can, hey, go do the blinds and the touch-up painting and the light bulbs, and you have one day. We have a hard time with kind of getting good people for that kind of service.
Okay.
And I would say, as an industry, that's across the board. That's not just Dorman.
Sure.
If you're looking for an opportunity as a handy entrepreneur, go start a turnover business and you'll guarantee make money.
Hey, and everything helps. I actually have a friend right now who's just registered his LLC, for a handyman business and stuff like that. So, there's a couple of people out there that, again, you said there's a need, and obviously, he knows that as well. So I'll definitely kind of put the word out there for you guys. And again, any business owners or property managers who are watching this, if you guys have those needs as well, drop them in the comments, let us know, and we'll do what we can to help connect. I mean, there's plenty of business to go around for a lot of businesses here in Colorado Springs, and I think whatever we can do to help. So,
and the other thing is if you're a vendor, we do allow vendors in this Facebook group, because it's very valuable for our people in our group to have resources to quality vendors. And so, you go in there. I don't allow people to advertise themselves, but often we'll get questions like, hey, who do you guys use for cleaning, or who do you guys use for handyman work? And, that maybe is an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to at least maybe answer questions for people that have them, can always lead to a great lead or opportunity, if you're the one being the face for, your industry, or being able to be the default expert for somebody. So,
and there's some good trade associations too, Patrick. Like if you go to NARPM, which is the National Association of Residential Property Managers, that's a really great group of single-family property managers, and we have several awesome vendors that get a ton of work from our group. So join a group like that and stick around. Go actually attend the meetings. Get out there and meet people, and I don't think you'll be hurting. There's lots of people that need good vendors out here. So
sure, yeah, that's awesome. You're a great resource. I know kind of reached out to you for many things in the past, just a quick IM, whenever you get a chance to get back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that maybe people don't know necessarily maybe about you, or, about Dorman? What's something that maybe people who maybe haven't had a chance to maybe kind of sit down and do a real big deep dive with you, and it can be about anything, maybe you or your family, or a special moment. I know you and your brother share kind of a lot of stuff online, and that's always fun to watch too. But what's something that that you feel is kind of worth sharing out there?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, and something that I'm very passionate about, is giving back to our community.
Oh,
I
yes.
know that sounds kind of like a cheesy kind of canned answer, but I'm telling you, like that's where my heart's at. You
Yeah.
know, giving back to our community, and that's not necessarily when we're in the middle of a pandemic, but this is certainly a good time to do that.
Yeah,
And
can I
so,
just highlight what you guys, this recent partnership that you guys had with Slice 420?
sure, man. Yeah.
I think that's incredible. Obviously, like I've had a chance to meet and sit down with Christian many times, the owner of Slice 420, and he's just an incredible person. So tell us kind of about this partnership that you guys came up with for, your Dorman residents.
Yeah. So let me start from the very beginning on that.
Yeah, please.
I care deeply about changing the narrative that landlords and tenants are on opposite sides of the table.
Hmm.
We are not enemies. We rely on each other. It's a symbiotic relationship. And so I think I wanted as a company for us to be an example, not only to giving back to other small businesses like Slice 420, but also landlords giving back to tenants, to show them exactly what I'm saying. We are not enemies, and we want to help each other. So what we did was, we bought, basically, had a $500 tab for 6 days for to buy pizza for anybody who is a renter who's been impacted by COVID. And it was so cool because every single day the budget was filled.
Man, that's
They
awesome.
were slammed with business with people who are renting properties, who are renters, and it's not just Dorman renters. It was any renter in Colorado Springs and or El Paso and Teller County. And so yeah, it's just really cool, man. I love that it worked out so well, and I'm very grateful for Christian. I'm sure he got hammered by phone calls.
Yeah,
And
and I know Christian too. So I saw a couple of people that maybe even after the budget was exhausted, and some people were saying, "Can I get in on this?" And he was basically just telling people, "DM us." So I know Christian's heart, and I'm sure that he took a hit for several people as well, just to make sure that they were able to kind of participate as well.
yeah, he
Um,
says that all the time. That's why I
yeah,
love that man. He's like, DM us if you can't afford to feed your family, and this dude will find some way to get you some pizza.
yeah.
And that's he is the example of what small businesses should be thinking and doing. And really, in our efforts in working with him, we were just modeling his example.
Yeah, I love that, man. And so I love the fact that you were able to use your position, use your influence to be able to do great things, but
Yeah,
it's not always necessarily in a boastful manner. It's basically just, hey, if you want to participate, this is kind of what we're doing. But what I liked was that all of the posts in regards to what you were doing wasn't, hey, this is what we're doing. No, it's, hey, this is in support of our tenants or other tenants or renters in Colorado Springs. This is in support of Slice 420.
yeah,
So, a lot of times it's really hard for people to maybe take that step back and allow other people to be able to shine in regards to something that you've started, you're doing and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the humility that you guys have shown throughout this entire process while giving back.
oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
What's really cool is we had a couple of our peers who were kind of inspired by what we did with pizza. And they were like, hey, man, I love where you guys' heart's at, and I want to do the same thing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do exactly, but I want to follow that example. And like that gives me feelings. I joke all the time that I'm a pretty unemotional guy. But that kind of stuff gives me feelings.
Yeah.
Seeing kind of the gosh, just a trickle effect, just the ripple effect of doing those kinds of things is just really cool.
Yeah. And I think that despite all the social media stuff in regards to COVID, especially here locally, I've seen the complete opposite and really the best of people. We've seen so many drive-by parades and birthday celebrations now. I think that, I don't know if you saw, and I don't know if it was here, but the video that went viral where people were basically in Costco and then they basically just kind of went into like a worship, you
Oh, I
know.
haven't seen that. Yeah,
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. It was like all these people, instead of like posting these videos of everybody who's like starting to fight and everything, and one person just kind of started singing, and then everyone else fell in suit, and it was pretty amazing. So
yeah,
despite all of the social media stuff and maybe the news stuff, knowing that people like yourself are making a difference right here in our backyard, and just finding ways to be able to help in whatever capacity.
Yeah.
And again, I challenge people to kind of do the same. And maybe you're not in a position to be able to have a $600 daily budget, but I've seen other people basically just do whatever they can to brighten up somebody else's day, or reach out to moms, whatever it is. So again, keep doing what you guys are doing. Again, whatever your platform, whatever you are able to do, I mean, it comes from the heart, and that's really essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah. And like you just said, Patrick, it doesn't have to be about a budget. There was a gentleman in our Colorado Springs Landlord Forum group who said, I called every one of my tenants, and I think he has 10 or 15 properties, but he said, I called every one of my tenants and I said, if you need anything at all, to include toilet paper or whatever, give me a call. And like,
Awesome.
I don't know if he spent any money on that. It was just, hey, I'm here to give back. I think that, and I don't want to get on too much of a soapbox here, but this world needs many fewer opinions and a lot more people, taking action and just being kind,
No, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Within the first week of the pandemic, I reached out to every single person I had touched base with that had gotten a quote or had a policy with me. So that's dating back to July of last year. And it was just a simple, hey, how are you guys doing? Do you need anything at the moment? And in particular, with clients that were maybe older, the concern was, maybe they're having a hard time, maybe they're asymptomatic or whatever it is. And, I really only had maybe 3 or 4 that basically took advantage of us being able to go out and do some supply runs for them and drop it off.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, like, I knew that I was doing something that, doing what I could, doing my part.
And that's where it's at, man. It's like right now, it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're in any business, you could do nothing special or unique and nobody would notice. So maybe this is the best time to do something special and unique. Wow. And, don't just do the normal, here's a canned thing about, the CDC, offer stuff and really mean it and then go do it,
I think in one aspect, that people, and this is, I think, a highlight that I've been kind of mentioning to entrepreneurs, small and local, is that in a ways that this has kind of put you on even playing field with big corporations.
Yeah.
This has put you kind of in the same box, and now you get a chance to really allow yourself to shine by standing out.
Yeah.
And so, and again, it doesn't have to be drastic. It doesn't have to, you don't have to spend and put yourself in a position where you may be hurting financially to do it. Just allow yourself to do all those things that you talked about, that you dreamed about when you first started, and allow yourself to really be that differentiator, and people will take notice. So,
yeah, I mean, it kind of gets back to the why. When you're in business and you're looking to make money, you want to be a business owner and you want to be profitable. Just profit for the sake of profit is pointless. Having a why as a business and as an individual, so just kind of, I think that's incredibly important. And if you don't have a why, what'll happen is you may be successful, but I think a lot of people say if all you're doing is chasing money, you're probably not going to be.
And definitely not for a very long time.
Not for a very long time. But even if you are, you're going to get there, and you're going to feel pretty empty. Like, okay, what was the point in doing all that? I know people that have experienced that specifically, and they, it led to extreme depression. That's why they say a lot of people who have money aren't always the people that are happy like you think they may be, because they were chasing the money and not the why.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that, man. And I'm so thankful that a lot of business owners seem to understand that they have to figure that out before anything else, or have quickly found out. Kind of a signature question here on this channel now is, if you didn't have constraints, time constraints, stresses, all those different things, and I think you talked about it a little bit, but maybe you have maybe a specific plan or something like that. But, if you had no constraints and no worries, unlimited amounts of, fundings or whatever, what is your ideal situation in terms of, maybe helping people or whatever your dreams and goals are?
That's kind of changed for me over time. For me personally, I would love to own and run a shelter. because I kind of have a heart for homeless in our community.
Hmm.
And that's kind of been one of my big whys for a really long time. And maybe I'm slow, but originally I did not connect the dots with the fact that I professionally rent out properties to people. Like I professionally provide housing. So, it's neat to see that I kind of had that vision before I even got in real estate. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that, and maybe it'll go down a different path, but that's kind of been a big thing for me and my wife.
Yeah, no, and I know that's been a long time passion of yours, because I remember years ago when I first proposed the idea of maybe converting buses into showers,
Oh
you
yeah,
had posted
I
some
still want to do that, by the way.
resources, and and at any time that that my family, if we do that yearly reach out where we just kind of go downtown and stuff like that. And I know that you always have a lot of resources and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I think that's amazing, and I hope that in some way, shape, or form that I'm able to help you achieve that and help be a part of that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be awesome.
but
That's
I think it's incredible to know that we have people like you who are in the city right here that are looking out for not only your tenants on a professional level, but we have kind of that involvement in terms of what's the next step to better the city, to better people.
yeah.
So I think that you're definitely well on your way, and it definitely somebody that I look I like. I'm glad that you were willing to take the time for me to connect with, because you inspire a lot of people, myself included, man. When I see some of the things that you're doing,
Thanks, man.
and at least from the social media life, it's nice to see that your involvement with your kids and your wife in terms of the projects and all that stuff, and to have that good balance. I think that's something a lot of business owners are also kind of maybe struggling with from time to time too. So
I think that's a hard thing to balance too, Patrick. Like I don't know how you feel, but I was raised not to be boastful, and on the other hand, I want to inspire people to run with the same heart and intent. And so it's kind of finding that balance of and this is just a personal opinion, but kind of finding that balance to where you are. I don't know. I guess for me as a Christian man, operating in a God honoring way, while also, maybe lifting other people up. So
definitely. Yeah, and it definitely shows where your heart is. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing is longevity, doing something for likes versus doing something because that's where you truly believe. That's the things that you do. And I think that showcases in everything that you do, man. So again, keep doing what you're doing, because a lot of people, we need that right now. There's a lot of people who basically look up to you regardless if they're actively participating in the social media stuff, or they're just viewing it from a distance. And that's kind of what I try to tell, my colleagues, my employee, my son, is just that you never know who's watching, and you never know when they're going to basically say anything, if they do say anything at all. But when they do, that's really a good time for feedback and to understand, and maybe it's acknowledgement that you are on the right path, and maybe that's where you have to realize, like, oh crap, maybe we need to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
And so I hope that this has been kind of affirmation for you as well, that you guys are doing great stuff, and that people are investing in the community.
Yeah, it means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. And then I guess for you, anything that for any entrepreneurs, small business owners, or maybe people who are just kind of, watching this, if you could give maybe advice to a younger version of yourself, or anybody who's maybe looking to start or has just recently started in terms of entrepreneurialism or small business and stuff like that, any advice for them?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, consistency, networking, perseverance. I think some of the things that I was very naive about when I was younger was how much work it takes. You have to be abnormal.
Yes.
If you're going to be mediocre, it's going to be hard. So you have to work hard, but you have to be consistent about it. And getting back to my point about networking, like networking is the single most underrated thing that a business person can do. Every single big deal that's come together for me, the fact that I'm a business owner of this business right now, it's all networking. I joined Dorman after basically meeting with random people, because I was looking for a change, and meeting with random people and figuring out who was hiring, and just kind of taking people out to lunch that I didn't know that I was referred to by a third party, you know. I mean, I went to a St. Patrick's Day party. I talked to a gentleman named Dave Millinger who does insurance, and he was like, "Hey, I know a guy named Todd Dorman who is looking to buy a property management company. Sounds like you're looking to make a change. Maybe you should give him a call." So I called Dorman, went to lunch with him twice. 2 years later, he offered me a job. You know, it doesn't happen quickly either. You know,
Right.
2 years later, he offered me a job, and then kind of consistency and taking ownership of the company before it was my own, and you know, just kind of trying my hardest to be a rock star. You know, it led to ownership, and we've purchased other companies. We bought a company called Courtney and Courtney 2 years ago, and that happened because I knew the owners through NARPM.
Okay.
And they wanted to sell to somebody that they trusted. So again, every big thing that's happened for me as a business owner, sure it's a result of your normal stuff, hard work and all that, but networking is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think networking and mentoring are life's two greatest secrets that people don't take advantage enough of. So, dude, thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your insights, and really just kind of telling us about what you do and how you do it. I think that for a lot of people, maybe who they understand maybe the renter side, but very few kind of maybe understand the other side, and then kind of the in between. You know, you kind of only care about it while you experience it.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I think that you had a lot of valid feedback for a lot of people, and again, a lot of these questions, you know, came directly from people who were kind of looking at it from different perspectives. So I appreciate your candidness and everything. And then, guys, again, if you were privy to be able to take advantage and listen to this, do yourself a favor. I mean, Alex is a great wealth of information. I know that he's extremely busy, but when he does have time, a lot of times, you know, it's easier to shoot him maybe an email rather than a phone call. But you know, when he has the opportunity, he'll definitely respond back to you and pretty transparent about all the different stuff. So Dorman, they serve Colorado Springs. Obviously, would you say over 700 properties that you guys manage?
Yeah.
60 HOAs.
Yeah.
You know, so definitely reach out. You know, and all the information is right here on the screen. If you guys,
I'm going to cut you off real quick, Patrick. I'm chuckling a little bit because the top comment here from Amber Murphy, I don't know if you saw that. You know, something that is important to know, you know, we as management companies, it is our duty to represent the property owner's interests. And I can't tell you how many times, you know, and that makes us the shield and the bullet sponge when it comes to representing the property owner.
Sure.
There are so many cases where we as management companies unfortunately have to be the guys that bring the bad news. And so, you know, for what it's worth, I thought I'd just point that out because, you know, we are unfortunately not always everyone's friends, even though we want to get along with our owners and our tenants.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think that, you know, if I know Amber, you know, like I think I do, I think that she'll probably maybe be open to maybe connecting. You know, she's not typically one to usually write something of that nature, you know what I mean? Because I think she understands that, you know, again, you know, being in business, the networking piece, you never know who you're gonna maybe be an ally with or to have conversation with, and or possibly need later down the road and stuff like that. So, you know, Amber, I appreciate you taking the time to at least acknowledge and leave feedback that may not be, I mean, you're being honest, right? And I respect you for that and stuff like that. And so, you know, what we can do moving forward is just connecting you with maybe Alex, or if it's, you know, on the HOA side, getting you in contact with his connects over there, since that's not his piece. But at least try and see what we can do to kind of at least have a conversation about it. And I think that's the best that we can do for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for your time. Guys, appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for those that tuned in live. If you're catching this after the fact on the replay, feel free to drop in any comments still. Alex will still be able to see those and respond. And if he's maybe too busy to be able to do that, I can at least shoot him an email and get back to you in regards to that. If you guys are catching this on the YouTube, go ahead and feel free to hit the like button or the bell button to get notifications. And we will be back next week on Wednesday. We're actually having an author, a self-published author. She's actually ranked #1 in 10 different categories on Amazon. And then we also have Culture Media, a group of young guys doing some amazing work with the videography stuff. Just some really great stuff coming. So I look forward to all those meetings, guys. But thank you so much for tuning in. And again, thanks for participating in these stories we're telling. Have a good day, guys.